welcome to this week's TRP. I am joined by Lord Matthew. We are Rubenless this week, so we are down a sandwich.
That's fair. It's more spacious now.
It's much more spacious. Does Ruben take up that much space though?
I mean, I was cramped last week. This is much more comfortable, I think.
Matt prefers the intimate one-on-one setting of just a Remy Lord Matthew podcast, it would seem.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's going to actually start us off this week. I know everyone's clamoring for the latest on Manny Machado, and we will get there. I know many people enjoyed that video earlier this week. I was apparently harassed on Twitter by San Diegoans.
Really?
Like one or two. I did not try to, I'm not anti-San Diego. Actually, it's a very beautiful place. I understand the allure. I just, in the video, we didn't think that, you know what? We'll get there. I will pace myself. Matt, if you want to share your levity and your light-hearted story of the week.
Well, I think this is the most important story of the week because it could reunite family members that have never met, or I guess have met now, but have never been together. But there are two pitchers, and this is kind of going around now. There are two pitchers in different minor league teams. One's with Texas, one's with, I believe, Seattle. I can double check that. They are both named Brady Feigl. They are both 6'4". They are both gingers, and they are now taking a DNA test to see if they are related. And I'm showing Jeremy the picture now. They look pretty similar, if I don't say so myself.
They have these big bushy chin strap gingery beards, and they wear the same type of eyewear, which is super weird. But maybe we have a parent trap situation because that was two redheaded children who didn't meet there. I believe Lindsay Lohan in the remake, just to drop a reference that my wife would enjoy.
That's fair. Yeah, I see a parent trap situation. They switch teams for a while and see if anybody notices, kind of thing.
Are they that good? Would anyone notice or care?
It's a good question. Actually,
Matt is doing stellar research at time of show. That's the best thing to do.
I'm all about the families reuniting. That's all I care about.
Matt is nothing if not considerate to the families of these pitchers.
Okay. Brady Feigl won. Looks like in the Seattle, he's got a whip of .73 in the minors. That's pretty good.
Over how many games though is this guy? And also, is he single A? Is he double A?
So that's 28 games.
Oh, 8 games
for the Beloit Snappers. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. He is 1-1 with a 1.35 ERA in 8 games.
Oh, we got an all-star over here.
I'm just saying.
I know.
That's the start of something beautiful.
It's the start of something. It's probably a shuttle up and down.
There you go.
Thank you for your lovely story, a tale of misbegotten siblings.
A tale of two Feigls.
The tale of two Feigls. Before we head out west, because there's a lot of NL West stuff going on today, I want to cover a not-so-happy story centered around Matt's beloved Cubbies. Apparently, Joe Ricketts, the patriarch of the Ricketts family, had some hacked emails released that were none too kind, a little bit Islamophobic, a little bit racist. Again, that goes hand in hand. And basically, Rob Manfield's not going to take any action against the Cubs. Joe Ricketts isn't really involved in any day-to-day operations or anything to do with the Cubs. Tom Ricketts basically said that he's also going to be involved with some Muslim group partnerships to fight Islamophobia. So that came out shortly afterwards. So that's a nice part of the story. But Matt, you're a big Cubs fan. How do you feel about this?
Well, first of all, Rob Manfield. I didn't realize it's Rob Manfred, isn't it?
It is Rob Manfred.
I'm giving him shit right now, but yeah, you obviously don't want to see that. I mean, I'm sure there are many people out there that are sharing emails to that degree. The problem, though, is that you're part of a family in an organization that is, under the microscope quite a bit, especially this off season where they haven't really done a whole lot. Tom is doing his best to sort of distance himself a little bit from that. And it's hard to always, you have to kind of answer for your parents a little bit in that sense. Like, he's not really responsible for that sort of thing. I'm sure he doesn't share his father's beliefs in that realm or whatever, but it's definitely not a good bit of information to come out, especially when your team kind of, I mean, not a down year per se, but, you know, with high expectations, and then to have this sort of hungover, and you have that whole Addison Russell thing situation going on. There's a lot of negativity going on with the Cubs organization even before the season starts. You definitely don't want to see that.
No, it's being handled, I think, as well as it can be. In all honesty,
Sure.
Tom's doing well by trying to give back to Islamic to give back to Muslim communities and try and make those kind of partnerships to combat Islamophobia and things of that nature. And I think putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, is the best way to handle that.
Sure.
You could say you're sorry, and that's great, but what are you going to do about it? We tend to be in a society where, and it's fair, words can be fairly meaningless, and your actions, speak for you. Actions speak louder than words, because I love to speak in cliches or puns.
There you go.
But I think that's the right steps. It's a good way to go. I think it's, it is an issue, certainly, that his dad expressed that in the emails and in the written form, obviously, but it's a non-issue, I think, in the fact that they're being proactive about it. So I think that's good. But switching to, I guess, lighter gears, and what Matt and I were videoing ourselves the other day, Manny Machado finally settled on somewhere. He is a San Diego Padre. He has agreed to play third base because the Padres do have a stellar shortstop prospect that will probably be up at some point this year in Fernando Tatis Jr., who is a top 3 MLB prospect. Yep. Manny has an opt-out after 5 years. I asked many of you on Twitter if signing Manny puts them in immediate contention, if they'll contend in 2 to 5 years, or if it still is irrelevant. Most of you did say, I think about 60-70% of you said that you expect the Padres to contend in 2 to 5 years. And I wanted to take a look at this decision on multiple avenues. I wanted to take a look at it from Manny's offers standpoint, and then literally, with the Padres' ability to contend. So first off, we do know that the Chicago White Sox were fairly aggressive in chasing Manny. I think Rick Hahn said they were short of maybe about $60 million overall, because I think they had a lot of not options, but a lot of incentives. If he hit certain marks and did certain things, he could have a higher salary. But the 10 years, $300 million is the largest offer he got. 5-year opt out. I don't know Manny, obviously. I can read many comments by former teammates, by his former manager with Showalter, saying that we could see it, that he's an extremely talented player. He is a generational talent. But I also read comments by Carlos Beltran, who shares an agent with Manny and who's an advisor right now for the Yankees, saying that he doesn't fault Manny for this, but the decision was made based on the age that Manny is, and then maybe if Manny was a little older, we could have perhaps seen a different direction for Manny. And I don't know exactly what that is. I think maybe alluding to him not wanting to immediately sign with the Yankees for 7 or 8 years at $240 or $260 or whatever number was being tossed about. But Matt, do you think that him signing with San Diego is strictly a financial move, or do you think that he saw something there that maybe we didn't?
Well, I think part of it has to be a financial move, because how do you turn down $30 million a year for 10 years based on that? If he's not getting that same offer anywhere else, if he's not getting 10 years guaranteed money, well, maybe not guaranteed, but 10-year contract or whatever, it's hard to turn that down. And I can't imagine if another team was going to offer something similar, if he wouldn't, reconsider his options and possibly go to a different, contending team or something. So I think, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I know $60 million is nothing to sneeze at, but all things considered, the White Sox signed his brother-in-law, they signed his buddy John Jay. They were trying to make an environment there for him, and I think the White Sox, it's easier for them to maybe contend in the Central than it is for San Diego necessarily at this point to contend in the West. So if all things were being considered,
I mean, it still has to be financial at that point. If you have this, environment in Chicago that, the White Sox have been stocking prospects for quite a while now. The last couple of years have been up and down for them, and they've been, making those, they got a big haul from Chris Sale. They've been, stockpiling players and all that. I would think that they would contend much sooner than San Diego would, just because of how weak the AL Central typically is, outside of Cleveland possibly.
Well, you have, and it's interesting. So I was actually watching a clip, I think it was earlier today when the Padres officially announced Manny. Brad Amsinger from MLB Network was talking to Manny, and Manny was saying that, part of the reason he wanted to sign with the Padres is that he believes that they are closer to contention than maybe people would assume. They have a great prospect pipeline, and it's a beautiful city, and it is. I've been to San Diego before, and it is beautiful. It's an amazing area. And if you look at
make those two San Diegans that you pissed off happy.
Yeah, and it could have been a jest. That's the thing about the internet. Is sometimes people just try and rile you up, and not actually legitimately oh, what did they do? I'm gonna have flame wars. No, that's not. That's not what I do. But looking at the prospects. So last year, Austin Hedges, very, very, very prominent catching prospect. Got to play in a couple games. Did he play the majority of the season?
He played a lot of the year, I think.
He played most of the year, yeah. He's highly touted. And then just on the cusp of things that are probably coming up this year, we mentioned Fernando Tatis Jr., who's a shortstop prospect, one of the top 3 prospects in all of Major League Baseball. Luis Urias, an infielder. There's Fernando Mejia, who's a catcher, corner outfielder. And then they have pitching prospects. Chris Paddock and Logan Allen. I mean, there's some people in there, there's some prospects in there that could be making an impact sooner than later. But when you look over their roster as it is currently constructed, and, I know people think highly of Hunter Renfroe and Manuel Margot.
Hosmer.
Well, I just meant from the young
yeah.
But yeah, they do have Eric Hosmer playing first base. I'm trying to be as not PC as possible, but I'm not trying to beat up the team. But basically, you have a good defensive infield, you have a good defensive outfield. I question a little bit of the hitting, and then when you look at the rotation, there's a who's who of pitchers, and it's not because it's a who's who of talent. It's because it's a who's who of I've never heard of these people in my entire life. I recognize Brian Mitchell because I knew him from the Yankees, but looking into the numbers, they don't have a clear-cut ace. They don't have clear-cut guys that are going to really be great throughout the whole season. A lot of those arms look like middle of the rotation at best or back end of your rotation at best arms. And they traded away one of the best relievers in the league last year, Brad Hand, to Cleveland. There's a lot on the pitching front that they need to contend, and when one of your biggest rivals has really good pitching, the Dodgers, that's a lot to consider. It's a lot to consider.
Sure, but I think the route that they're going, I think it's what a lot of teams are doing. And I, obviously with the Cubs, I kind of followed it very closely, but the kind of template that they've set now is that you stockpile these high draft picks, these highly touted players, position players to develop your lineup, and then you build up that team offensively and pull in those free agent pitchers, those starting pitchers that might be looking for a team that's kind of on the cusp of contending. Because that's kind of what the Cubs did. They didn't have they traded away Dempster, they traded away Samardzija. They traded away all these players that were performing really well for them and got these hauls back in return, and then later signed, John Lester. They signed, Lackey for his little bits or whatever.
But there isn't really a Lackey or a Lester out there. I'm just talking about this season right now because
they're not competing this season.
But here's the thing. So I saw some different estimates and projections, and I'm just going to average it. This is not the exact number. I am just averaging. Could be a little bit lower, could be a little bit higher. But right now, their major league payroll is about $100 million. I saw some things that said they were about a 110. I saw a couple number projections that were estimated at about 86 or 88 million for total obligations. whatever. So that's what I'm saying about they're at about $100 million for payroll right now. They can add, and they're still talking about it, adding a Bryce Harper to help, give further impact to that offense. And obviously that's a major guy that you can market around. But there's still people that they could contend this year. Craig Kimbrell is still out there.
Craig Kimbrell's not going to make them compete this year, though.
Okay, I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm saying if you sign Harper, if you sign Kimbrell, you can get Dallas Keuchel and hope that he's even a fraction of what he was in Houston, because maybe he's not an ace, but he's still number 2 or number 3.
Better than who they have right now.
Exactly. Gio Gonzalez is still available, and maybe he's on par a little bit with what they have, but at least this kind of veteran leadership and somebody who's going to give you innings. I mean, there's people out there. That's why I'm saying no. Craig Kimbrell on his own right is not going to make the Padres contenders, because if you can't get to your closer, it doesn't matter who your closer is. You could be their closer. It wouldn't make a difference if they're not winning.
Yeah.
But the point is, there's still some pieces and things that can make them potentially compete. And we're going to get back to Harper in a second. But talking about the direct competition. There was a interesting report by Jorge Castillo from LA Times saying that Dave Roberts confirmed today that they've shut down Clayton Kershaw immediately. He's going through an arm thing. Is
that what it said? An arm thing?
An arm thing, yes. He said it's an arm thing.
All right.
Kershaw did not feel right after a bullpen session on Thursday. He's 31. He's been hurt the past 3 seasons, mostly his back. In 2018, so last season, he did have a bicep issue that kept him out the entire month of May. If you're the Dodgers, are you freaking out right now?
I mean, I would be. It's one thing if it's kind of a freak accident. It happens, this is the first time it's happened. I mean, you'd freak out either way because you're probably your best pitcher when he's, healthy. But at this point, consecutive 3 years he's been hurt? He's, 31. I mean, you're still kind of in your prime area, so to speak. If you're getting hurt and you're delaying that even further, the Dodgers really need it, for all his postseason troubles and reputation he has, you really need him to be healthy to really contend.
He's arguably, arguably the best pitcher of our generation.
When healthy.
When healthy, yes.
And not the postseason.
So then that backtracks to what we were just previously talking about. So let's say, and we don't know, let's say for argument's sake Kershaw is gone for the bulk of the season. Hopefully not, but just in case. And the Padres do make some of those splashy moves and do acquire a Keuchel and then maybe use some of those prospects that we mentioned to make a trade. Maybe they can land Kluber. Kluber was, I know the Indians said that they're no longer interested in trading him, but I'd trade Corey Kluber if I'm getting 3 top 100 prospects back.
That's true, but then is that going to hurt their plan of, because are they going to, if they're going to trade Kluber, how old's Kluber? He's like...
I think Kluber's about 32.
32?
I believe.
Because are they going to want, Tatis Jr.? Are they going to want these high
They're
prospects?
They're not going to get Tatis, but let's say for argument's sake they give, 3 out of the other 4 that we mentioned. All of a sudden, you have some good starters in there, and you don't necessarily need those guys, and you can work them for trades, or you trade them one of your prized outfielders because you have Harper out there. I mean, it's some of those moves start to fall into place and give you a little bit more wiggle room.
I think if they start making those signings, because again, I keep going back to the Cubs, so I'm familiar with it. When they got Joe Madden basically as the coach, that's what started drawing John Lester. It obviously came David Ross with it. They drew all these players in the team because they saw that they were building something special with him as the coach or the manager, and then their young core of talent. If they start signing these types of players, if they get a couple prospects, if they get a couple starting pitchers, they get a stud reliever or whatever. If they somehow land Harper as well, that's a long-term plan that they have set in place. That's going to be a very inviting location for some of these veteran players who are also looking to, build something special.
Well, absolutely. And, we mentioned they have the financial ability to sign Harper right now. And then also, I did want to touch on this because, and I'm one of the people that thought that, Harper's destined to stay in Washington maybe. But Lisa Redmond from NBC Sports Washington posted a comment from the Nationals owner, Mark Lerner, which was, they're not interested. They've moved on from Bryce. The exact comments from Mark Lerner was, "Nothing's changed on our end. We've moved on. As I said back then, and we've had to, there was no way we could wait around. Bryce, I'm sure he will make his decision hopefully in the next few days, but we've filled out our roster, and like I said, wish him nothing but the best." So you have one less team potentially interested in Harper. I know the Giants were talking to him. I know the Phillies were talking about their insane money or mad money or whatever money or monopoly money, whatever dollars and cents they got, milk money, doesn't matter. They didn't get Machado, so they're pretty gung-ho on Harper, but, the Padres could throw around some cash too, and if there's one less horse in this race and Harper could get the kind of money he wants from the Padres, I don't see a reason why he doesn't go out there.
Well, especially with Machado signed there, too. You have a 1-2 punch. I mean, that's a 3-4 in the line. That's going to be tough to get past every time. But the comments, though, doesn't sound like, he's saying the right things. He doesn't want people to kind of, think that they're just waiting around for Harper, because you don't want to give that sort of, opinion or sort of mentality with your fans that you're sitting around waiting for Harper to, like, call you and all that stuff. I think if he decided he wanted to sign with the Nationals and he was going to accept an offer they maybe previously given him, I can't imagine they turn that down. But he's saying the things that he needs to say to get his team ready to go. Obviously, spring training is starting up. Like, they need to get going. They can't focus and devote their attention to Harper if he's going to wait around and decide where he wants to go. They want to, focus on this season. If he's delaying it, then he's doing the right thing.
No, I think it's a good message to send to everybody, and then if Harper signs with them, he signs with them. But I don't know, but it feels like Harper's tenure now in DC is effectively over.
I can see that. And I can see a lot of teams, like you said, the Phillies are clearly spending a lot of money. The Padres can spend a lot of money. Again, he alone, unless it's a kind of fringe team that's on the cusp, he alone's not going to make that team a contender.
No.
If he joined the Phillies, I think the Phillies are the favorite in the NL East for sure at that point. If he goes to the Padres, they're going to be a better team, obviously, with him and Machado. But like you said, they still have a starting five that no one knows who the hell they are. So they might be like, the Rockies where they score a crap ton of runs, but then their pitching doesn't really kind of keep up with it.
So if you're, we're going to play a brief game.
Excellent.
Matt loves to role play. Matt, if you're Bryce Harper and your options right now are the Philadelphia Phillies, San Francisco Giants going into Bruce Bochy's last year,
sure,
or the San Diego Padres, and those are your three options, who do you pick?
Of those three teams, if he is concerned with money, which, who isn't concerned with money to some degree? If all he's concerned with is making money, I would bet the Padres would throw the most money at him. I think I can't tell if he'd be okay with sharing the spotlight, because obviously Machado's a big signing, and you have two people there that, I don't know if they're going to fight for, the spotlight or whatever. But if he's looking to win a World Series, which I would hope is kind of his goal at this point, the Phillies, I think, are the closest team to doing that. They've obviously added a lot of pieces to make that happen. They were pretty close last year. They didn't make the playoffs, but they kind of tanked at the bottom or at the end of the season. I think they have sort of learned from that. I think they are going to be a lot better this year than people think. If he signs with them, I think they're just going to elevate him a lot. And if he wants to win a World Series, that's probably his best option of those three teams.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the Phillies are his best option. I am going to kind of answer my own question and not.
Okay.
I don't think the Phillies alone are the best option for him to go to the World Series. I also think...
well, there's a lot of other teams that would be better for him
I'm just talking about these three teams. I'm still talking about these three.
Okay.
I think if he really loved Philadelphia, and there's been some reports and things that maybe he doesn't, the Giants could be a good fit for him to actually still get to the World Series. I feel like the Giants are going to play motivated baseball for Bochy's last season.
Sure.
Bumgarner is still an ace. Madison Bumgarner is still an ace.
When healthy.
When healthy. That is always the caveat, when healthy. If they can sign him, I think that motivates to make some other moves to shore up a contender. And I know they have a lot of payroll tied up. Obviously they have Samardzija, they have Belt, they have Cueto. So they have some dead. I don't mean dead weight in that the players aren't. Well, it depends how you want to look at it. Because I
Sure.
Yeah, but they have players who are not necessarily the value of their contract. If that makes more sense.
Well, I think it comes down to, again, they say defense or pitching always wins your team or wins the World Series or championship.
Yeah.
Philadelphia has the best pitching of those three teams. The Giants, in theory, could have the best pitching if they perform the way they should. Cueto had a pretty down year. Samardzija's very inconsistent. If Bumgarner plays the whole year, yeah, he's arguably right up there with Kershaw as probably the best pitcher in the league. It's a toss-up between the two. I just think the Phillies are closer to doing that, and they have an easier division. They have an easier path. I mean, you have the Braves. If Harper leaves,
You think the Phillies? Here's the thing. So if Kershaw's down for an exorbitant amount of time, Arizona's going on a downswing right now.
Sure.
The Rockies are somewhat of a mixed bag. Arenado could be traded at the deadline this year,
assuming how the Rockies do, I guess.
Assuming how the Rockies do, and if an extension hasn't been worked out, and all these other factors involved. Do you honestly think that if the Giants, had another impact bat like Harper, maybe they added Dallas Keuchel to help their rotation? You don't think that that's a winnable division potentially for him to join?
If they all pitch their potential, if Cueto comes back to when he was in Cincinnati and was like mowing down people, if Samardzija showed the same kind of fire that he did previously with the Cubs and with the I guess he did okay with the A's in the postseason, I think. If they all pitch their potential, the Giants do have a very good pitching staff, and I think the NL West is more winnable. I think the Phillies from last year, I think they're going to be equally as motivated as the Giants because they thought that, they were very close. They were in first place. They were really close to the Braves. They tanked at the end of it. I think that's going to motivate them more than the Giants are going to be motivated with Bochy's last year.
But you still have the Nationals, who are still a very good team. Strasburg is also one of the best pitchers in the league.
Sure.
The Mets have arguably the best top three in the entire league.
But with zero offense.
But that's what they improved. I mean, Cano is not necessarily any kind of a slouch.
No.
Jed Lowry hits actually pretty well. I mean, he's not crazy pop or anything.
Is that going to be enough to elevate him in the NL East, though?
Between the pitching and the ability to maybe score a couple extra runs, it's possible. I mean, this is one of the conversations where Ruben would jump in and rip us both a new one.
Sure.
For this, that, and the other with, what...
I'm used to him being here, so I just want to say the Mets are terrible.
With what Conforto's going to do and what Jeff McNeil's going to do and, whatever.
Bobby Bonilla comes out of retirement.
Bobby Bonilla's going to finally make his money's worth. I just think that there are more high competitive... And the Braves, obviously, are still the Braves.
Sure. I mean, the Braves are going to be the team to beat in that division for sure.
But I'm just saying there's more teams that are going to give potentially the Phillies trouble than... and I'm not even saying Harper's the last piece to that. I'm saying he's not. If they got it, what would they do?
Yeah.
And then that could be the same situation with the Padres. Absolutely. It's what those two teams in the West could do after getting Harper. And I think there's a lot more potential, is all I'm saying, potential to do better and win that division in the West than there potentially is in the East.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But it's a coin flip, and hopefully we'll see in the next couple days. Hopefully he'll sign, and we could
sign with some team that's like in the AL for all we know at this point.
Bryce Harper signs with the Oakland. No,
that would be amazing. That'd be so funny.
That's
you
not,
wanted a West team, so he'll sign with the Angels. He'll hang out with Mike Trout.
He's also a Vegas kid, so being in the West.
I mean, that's fair.
Being in the West. But we have deliberated and debated, I think, enough on Harper this week. Hopefully we'll get Rubes back next week. There was some Mets things that I wanted to touch on that we needed his expertise upon. But we'll get into some of that hopefully next week. But until then, Matt, I think you and I definitely kept the ship righted and strong.
I agree. There's some pun there that I'm not getting.
No, I'm punned out. It's been a long day for both of us. But until next time, we thank everybody for listening, and hopefully join us next week as well. And always be a fan.